legendary technique, Hollow Purple.
How do you make a good ability? For a writer building a power system, this is one of the most important questions you'll ever face. Do you go for something flashy and spectacular that'll make fans go wow and feed the power scaling community for generations? Or do you try and break new ground and formulate something completely original? Both of these are valid approaches, but here's the thing. The real secret to a great ability isn't necessarily how unique or spectacular it is. The secret is in how deeply it connects to the character who wields it. There is no infinity without Satoru Gojo, no sunshine without Escanor, and no Star Platinum without Jotaro Kujo. One of my absolute favorite dynamics in storytelling is when a character is mirrored by their ability. You've definitely seen this before, abilities that feel like an extension of the person using them. Sometimes the power comes first and the character is molded around it. Other times the character comes first and the ability is crafted to match. Either way, when done well, it transforms abilities from just a cool gimmick into a full-on narrative device, whether that be used to express symbolism, drive character growth, or even act as a lens through which the story unfolds. Of course, not every attempt at this hits the mark. Sometimes authors fall into the trap of giving their characters surface-level connections with their powers that barely go beyond the obvious. You know the drill, the hot-headed guy gets fire powers, or the cold and distant girl gets ice powers, that kind of thing. These aren't inherently bad ideas, but if the ability matches a very surface-level personality trait or aesthetic without digging deeper, the result usually feels shallow, predictable, and honestly kind of boring. So, how do you pair characters with powers in a way that amplifies their writing? What are the common mistakes authors make when trying to achieve this? And more importantly, what makes the best ones truly stand out? Well, by the end of this video, that's exactly what we're going to figure out. So stick around, you might just learn something important. Did they ever reveal Sukuna's real name? Huh? This is getting ridiculous. The first couple of sites they blocked were, yeah, understandable. But pretty soon, I won't be able to use anything just because I live in the UK. I'm kind of busy right now. Good news, Pint. I've taken the liberty of locking down the rest of your internet. What? You know those new laws that just passed, right? Well, I'm getting ahead of the curve. I've blocked every single website that I've deemed unfit for public consumption. You can't be serious. I can't make videos without those sites. I mean, the weather app's still up. Just make a video about that. Whatever. I've got a backup for situations just like this. The partner of today's video, NordVPN. And what's that meant to do? It's pretty simple. NordVPN lets me decide what I can see online, not you. It hides my IP and encrypts my internet traffic so nobody can snoop on it. Not hackers, not my ISP, and especially not you. Plus, it comes with Threat Protection Pro. That means it can block dangerous websites, infected files, and malicious ads that lead you to scam pages or phishing traps. Basically, even if you did try to sneak malware onto my PC, which I see you tried to, it wouldn't work. So you can just bypass all my filters like that? Yup, that easy. And because I'm using my exclusive creator link, nordvpn.com/pintis, I get their best deal. A 2-year plan that comes with an extra 4 bonus months on top. And what if you don't like it? Sounds like you're getting interested yourself. Well, anyone who uses NordVPN can get their money back within 30 days due to their money-back guarantee. So it's essentially a risk-free decision. And just like that, I'm good. Goodbye filters, hello actual internet. Fine, sign me up too. Finally bit the bullet. Well then, do yourself a favor and go to nordvpn.com/pintis to start protecting your browser and internet from people who try to decide what you can and can't do online. And get your extra 4 months bonus when you grab the 2-year plan. Now, let's head back into the video. So, why should a writer even care about pairing characters with the right abilities? An ability, when done right, is much more than just visual spectacle. It can become a direct extension of the character themselves. Everything from how the ability manifests How it's used and how it grows can be used to reveal something about a character, their values, their flaws, their struggles, and even their worldview. The ability stops being just a tool to progress the narrative and instead becomes a mirror of the character themselves. This is why the most impactful abilities stay with the audience. It's not just about their spectacle or their feats, it's also about how they expertly related to the character. Suddenly, fights aren't just fists flying or explosions going off. There are also pathways into the psyches of the characters involved in them. And that's where storytelling hits its peak. So how do you actually make a good ability character pairing? Before you answer that question, you have to decide what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Do you want to create a character around an ability, or do you want to design an ability specifically for a character? Different authors have different approaches. For example, Araki will always make his stand abilities first before designing a character's personality and appearance to be in harmony with that. But personally, I think the most effective method is this. First, you decide if you're working on a main character or a side character. If you want your main cast to be engaging and layered, then you need to build them up as people first. Their personalities, backstories, and motivation, all of that has to come before their abilities. Because when you understand who a character is, you can design powers specifically centered around them, whether that be to highlight their growth or reflect the deeper intricacies of their personality. And that makes for far more compelling storytelling. When it comes to secondary characters though, especially antagonists or side villains, it can be much more effective to do the opposite. In these cases, building the power first lets you design abilities meant to specifically challenge your protagonist in interesting ways. The character who wields the ability doesn't even need to be fleshed out. They simply have to be the medium through which your main cast is tested. This approach gives you the creative freedom to craft battles that feel unique, forcing your heroes to problem solve rather than brute force their way through. So whether you start with the character or the ability simply depends on their role in the story. Either way, the key is that when the ability connects with the person using it, the result is storytelling that resonates far greater beyond just flashy fights. And few modern series embody this principle as clearly as My Hero Academia. Because in MHA, quirks aren't just randomly gained superpowers, they are literally biologically connected to the characters who wield them. The basic concept of My Hero Academia's power system is pretty simple. Quirks are superpowers, and about 80% of the population has them, leaving only 20% powerless. But what really elevates quirks beyond just being another superhero schmick is the biological foundation that Horikoshi has given them. Quirks are not random, they're genetic. They can be inherited, combined, and in many cases, they come with physical traits or limitations that tie them to the body itself. Sure, some quirks look like straight-up magic, and yeah, they are straight-up magic, but more often than not, there's a clever biological explanation at least trying to ground it. Take Bakugo for example. In most series, a powers like his would simply be written as, he has the ability to create explosions from his hands. End of story. But Horikoshi doesn't make it that simple. He specifies that Bakugo's sweat contains a nitroglycerin-like substance which he can ignite at will. That one detail completely changes how his power functions. It means his explosions can be stored in gauntlets, shared with his allies, or strategically built up into even bigger blasts. What could have been a generic explosion power instead becomes a system with massive tactical depth. But the brilliance of Quirk's biological influence doesn't just stop at explaining the power. In this world, quirks don't just influence how a character fights, but how they think, behave, and even view the world around them by affecting the very brain itself. Where Horikoshi really gets to push this concept is with the League of Villains. And this makes sense after all, the League is built from characters rejected by society because of their quirks. This gives their character ability dynamics a much deeper narrative weight, compared to the heroes whose quirks are just simply tools for them. Take Shigaraki. His quirk, Decay, allows him to destroy anything he touches. On the surface, the connection is simple. Shigaraki is a character that wants to destroy society, so he gains a power that allows him to achieve that. What's interesting is how exactly the ability grows. As Shigaraki becomes more of a social threat to the world of My Hero Academia, so does the reach of his decay. By the end of the series, Shigaraki's destructive potential is so potent that he even begins to peel away at himself, showing that for a man with an urge to erase everything around him, the only path that is left is that of self-destruction. Or look at Twice. His duplication quirk could have just been another support ability, but for him, it's deeply rooted in his psyche. The ability to create clones highlights his desperate need for companionship and his fractured sense of self. At one point, he couldn't even use his quirk on himself because he didn't trust his own identity enough to replicate it. Only when he accepts and begins to trust in himself is he able to use his ability to its fullest potential. Then there's Dabi. His firepower is parallel to Todoroki's, but in a far more tragic way. Whereas Todoroki's flames symbolize his inherited trauma, Dabi's flames are his obsession with that trauma, specifically his hatred of his father, Endeavor. His fire is so intense that it burns away at his own body, and as his obsession deepens, the flames consume him more and more. His quirk becomes the physical embodiment of his self-destructive obsession, and by the end, that hatred literally burns him alive. But for me, the most fascinating example of this is that of Himiko Toga. Her quirk allows her to drink someone's blood and transform into them, which on the surface is already quite unsettling. But the way Horikoshi develops the ability is honestly genius. Because of this quirk, Toga's brain is rewired to associate blood with love. Growing up neglected and misunderstood, her only ways of expressing affection become twisted. To her, drinking someone's blood is tantamount to loving them. At the start of the series, this love is selfish and short-sighted. She only takes and never gives because to a neglected child, that's what love is. But as she grows closer to the League of Villains, her understanding of companionship and community deepens, and so does the depth of her love. This is reflected in her power evolving. She doesn't just copy appearances anymore, she can even copy their abilities too. Her quirk literally grows in step with her emotional development. The culmination of her arc is both devastating and beautiful. In her final act, Toga discovers that by transforming into someone else, she's able to replicate their blood composition. Using this ability, she performs a blood transfusion that saves Uraraka's life at the cost of her own. It's the perfect ending to her story. For the first time, Toga understood that real love isn't about taking from others, it's about giving yourself away. And Horikoshi perfectly expresses that through her quirk, tying her power and character arc together in a way that's spectacularly done. Now let's talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, a series that has practically perfected the art of crafting abilities with characters in mind. The main power system of the series is wait, no, that's far too early. The main power system is no, that's later. It's Jesus Christ? Wait, like deadass? No? Oh, okay. I got it. The main power system for JoJo's is stands. Stands are physical manifestations of a user's soul, whose appearance and powers are shaped by the user's personality, psychology, and experiences. In other words, Araki literally bakes character ability dynamics into the foundations of his system. What this does is brilliant. It means that every battle isn't just a mechanism to move the plot forward. A display of a character's stand also works to reveal something about the character themselves. Essentially, Araki has managed to get his battle writing and his character writing to work in parallel. Now, there are countless examples of this across the series, but one of the clearest and my personal favorites comes from part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable. That is the juxtaposition between Josuke Higashikata, the main protagonist, and Yoshikage Kira, the main antagonist. Their stands, Crazy Diamond and Killer Queen, are almost perfect mirrors of who they are. To understand this, you first have to understand the characters themselves. On the surface level, Josuke looks like your typical delinquent. Messy uniform, slicked back pompadour, and always ready to throw hands. At a glance, you'd assume he's just another punk with attitude issues. But in reality, Josuke is incredibly kind-hearted, compassionate, and protective, the type of person who would put himself at risk for someone he barely knows. And Crazy Diamond reflects this perfectly. Crazy Diamond is one of the strongest physical stands in the series, rivaling a monster like Star Platinum in terms of sheer speed and power. But there's a very creative twist to Josuke's ability. Those fists don't just destroy, they also repair. Crazy Diamond has the ability to restore anything it touches to its original state. In that sense, that raw strength is turned into a sort of kindness. In that way, Josuke's stand embodies his true self. A guy who seems to have a rough exterior, but whose heart is actually defined by compassion. And Kira, the hand fetishizing mass murderer he is the exact opposite of this. Outwardly, he wants nothing more than to live a quiet, mundane life. He blends in, avoids attention, and lives with a strict routine. But underneath that facade lies a serial killer utterly obsessed with indulging his murderous compulsions while keeping them hidden. He needs to kill, but he also has to erase every trace of his crimes so he can continue living his so-called peaceful life. And that's where Killer Queen comes in, the perfect reflection of that obsession. Killer Queen has the ability to turn anything the user touches into a bomb, erasing its target down to the atomic level. No clothes, no fingerprints, no evidence. Even the explosions themselves are dead quiet to everyone outside the target. It is a stand completely designed to allow Kira to indulge in his violent tendencies while still preserving the illusion of being a completely normal person. So when these two characters clash, it's not just a question of who has the stronger stand. It's about two fundamentally opposing worldviews colliding. Josuke is someone who uses the strength given to him to protect and restore. On the other hand, Kira is someone who uses the strength given to him to erase and to hide. That contrast creates some of the most gripping tension across the entire series, and is part of what elevates Part 4 to my second favorite part. Yeah, it's impossible to beat Part 7. Hunter x Hunter is easily one of the most well-developed power systems in all of shonen. Togashi literally sacrificed his back to give us one of the most well-detailed power systems in fiction. I mean, just look at the size of the Nen Wikipedia page, it's absurd. But what makes Hunter x Hunter's system stand out isn't just its complexity, it's the way it ties the creation of abilities back into the characters themselves. In My Hero Academia, your quirk can literally affect your brain chemistry and change how you interact with the world. In JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, your stand inevitably reflects your inner psyche, whether you want it to or not. But in Hunter x Hunter, things work differently. None abilities are consciously constructed by the user. Every ability is crafted around that person's specific strengths, goals, and obsessions. The system forces you to make choices. Do you design something practical, or do you limit yourself with conditions and restrictions to make your ability stronger? And this creates a truly interesting dynamic. None abilities don't just reveal who the character is. They reveal what a character wants most and what they're willing to sacrifice to achieve it. And one of the clearest, most striking examples of this is none other than Kurapika. From the moment he's introduced, Kurapika's entire life is defined by a single goal: avenging the Kurta clan and reclaiming their stolen Scarlet Eyes. From that point onwards, every action and decision he makes is tied back to this single obsession. Inevitably, even the way Kurapika decides to build his Nen ability reflects this. Kurapika is a conjurer by nature, but when his eyes turn scarlet, he temporarily becomes a specialist. In this way, Kurapika's trauma and identity are fused together. Even his aura bends to his obsession with the Kurta clan. His most infamous ability, Chain Gel, is the clearest example of this. The chain can bind and completely restrict another person's Nen, essentially deactivating their abilities. This ability alone would be insanely overpowered, but here's where Togashi's genius-level writing comes in. Kurapika is limited to only using this ability on members of the Phantom Troop. If he tries to use this on anyone else, he will instantly die. This condition makes the ability stronger than it should be, but also chains him to this vendetta. The ability itself is a reflection of his obsession with revenge. Kurapika is literally binding his own life with that of the troop. Although the rest of Kurapika's chains appear to be just practical tools, They all serve the same symbolic gesture. Chains are, of course, objects of restraint. They all represent his fixation, his inability to move on, and the way his grief has trapped him just as much as his enemies. The more he leans onto them, the more he is closed off from the rest of the world, even needing to shave off hours from his own lifespan to utilize his chains to their full potential. That's why Kurapika's ability is so compelling. It's not just strong, nor just clever, it's a reflection of the character themselves. That's part of what makes Nen such a powerful storytelling tool. It doesn't stop at showing us what a character can do, it also shows us what a character is willing to give up in order to get what they want the most. So whether it be My Hero Academia, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, or even Hunter x Hunter, we can see just how powerful ability character dynamics can be when serving your storytelling. Sometimes it's baked directly into the system, and other times it's about the choices characters make and how those choices reveal their deepest desires and obsessions. But no matter the approach, the best abilities will never just be flashy gimmicks. They're the mirrors, symbols, and storytelling tools that expose who these characters really are. So if you're writing your own story, don't stop at just what you think sounds cool. Think about what your character needs most. Their complexes, their fears, their psyches, their quirks, their history, their values, their flaws, and then build their power around that. Because when an ability and an identity can work together, every single moment of conflict becomes that much more meaningful. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a comment letting me know which characters you think have the best ability character dynamics, and maybe I'll cover them in a later video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and yeah, that's it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.